Hello, everyone. My name is John, and I'm a Get More Math trainer. There's a QR code showing on the screen. Please scan that and fill that out. This is your attendance for this combined T2 and T3, all about tracking progress in exams. You can see what you're expected to learn during this time, and that is to monitor class and student progress, modify the skills for your individual students, and then implement exams, corrections, and follow-ups. All right, so let's get started. One piece of data that's really important is as you're walking around, you need to remember the colors that students are going to see on their screens. Okay, so all squares start out as white, means they haven't practiced it or they haven't practiced it enough. If you see a red square, that simply means students are struggling. When you see a yellow square, that means they initially understand that concept that they're learning today. That is the highest level they can achieve on day one and day two. So for the first couple of days, these are the only colors that students will see. However, after 3 days of practice, and it does not have to be 3 consecutive days, any 3 days of practice, they can level up to green, 5 days to get to silver star, and 7 days to get to gold star. So I wanted to review that for you. That data that you see on student screens is really important as we talk about our proficiency when we look at your screen. Okay, so I'm going to jump over now and show you what current status is all about. Current status is really just the real-time data that you can see for your students. So always have current status available during the time that students are with you. Now, in this column right here, you can see all of my active students shown by a green dot and a blue name. You can click on any student's name as needed. Okay, and when you do that, you can see the exact problem that's on their screen. You can see the answer to that problem if needed. You can also send a message. It's one-way messaging, so you can send some encouragement or a hint of some sort. You can replace the problem, but remember, students also have the show answer on their screen. If you want them, you can set that in settings for the whole class or roster for individuals. You can also give a game credit. Game credits are those 90-second brain breaks. So if you want to incentivize the games, you can certainly do that as well. Now, if I want to click on any of the column headings, I can put things in order. For example, these 3 students who have their hand raised, if I just click on help order, now I put them in order. You can also see what students are working on, the progress towards completion. You can see that some students are working on the new lesson or an older lesson, and then some are working in Spire Review. You can also click on points today in the column heading to reorder it. Same with time since correct. Anytime you see a red number, that means it's been 6 minutes or more since the last correct answer. Okay. Now that was current status Spire Review. This is the class data. How have students done so far on all of the skills that you've put in? Active skills are going to be showing with the slider green here. So you can see the column here for active skills. But I want to point out a couple of things. One of them is points distribution. It's a breakdown of how many points students have earned in Spire Review and targeted skills. So that's a good one to look at. You want to have more green than purple. So when you look at your data and you're looking at your circle graph for your Spire Review, okay, it's good if they're about a 50-50 split. It's great if you have more green than purple. If you have more purple than green, it's just a good time to remind yourself, hey, I need to get my students into that Spire Review more often, do a warm-up or a bell ringer of some sort. So we recommend more green than purple when you're looking at your Spire Review. Okay. The other piece of data that I want to look at is rotation time. Rotation time simply means how often are students correctly cycling through those problems as a class. Remember, Spire Review is class data. So we have some recommendations here as well. If you have 30 days or less, that's good. If you have 15 days or less, that's great. In other words, you're saying here that your students are cycling through those problems very frequently, 15 days or less on average for your students. Now, if you have the needs work column says more than 30 days, if you have more than 30 days showing on yours for your rotation time, it's a good time to remember, hey, maybe I can turn off some of those skills or remediate some of those low proficiency skills for my students. Again, one big recommendation is to always do a warm-up every single day. Get your students in to those problems as often as you can. So the lower the rotation time, the better. Now, I'm going to jump back over to my live screen so I can show you a few things from here. Okay, what I've done is I've collapsed this column here. You can do that. You can collapse any column by just using the forward or back or to expand it again. But you can see my points distribution. If you hover over the circle graph, you can see exactly how many points students have earned in each of the 2 sections for Spire Review and targeted skills. So that's a nice piece to look at. And remember, anytime you're forgetting what these different metrics mean, you can always hover over the question mark too, just to tell you what that simply means there. Active skills, I have 60 in this class. These are shown as active here. My rotation time is 11 days. So again, if you can keep it under 30 days, that's the optimal value there. And then accuracy is how often students are answering correctly on the first attempt. Okay. Now you can see I also have some different data down here. For all of my active skills, I can see which ones are active. I can see by the date added. I can order any of these columns, remember? So I'm going to order by the most recent. Okay, and you can give a description here for each of the skills. If you click on this, you can see the exact problem, okay, and you can cycle through several different examples or remediate from here as well. Okay, I'm going to go back to the SPI review just so I can show you the other pieces right here. There's proficient students in Get More Math. I know we talked about that with the colors in those first couple slides, but remember, green, silver, and gold means proficient in Get More Math. Okay, now you can open up more data right here as well. Here's manage columns. Maybe I'm looking at this data saying, wait, why are my students 0% proficient? Okay, remember, I just put this skill in. If it's a recent skill, you're probably not going to expect much here, but you can open up to see more data just to see how your students are doing. So if these two numbers, if this number is really low, you can also look at accuracy to say, okay, well, my students aren't doing too bad. I just make sure I give them more time to finish these two skills and keep working on those in the spiral review. Okay, you can also open up if I wanted to see red, I can see which squares are showing the most red or least red. I can go to this skill. I have 6 students showing red. You can click on any of these blue numbers here to get you even more data. So I can see exactly which students are red, and I can go to my problem here to see what that looks like. I can make it full screen using the full screen icon here, and then I can cycle through several different problems and do some remediation with those students who need it. Okay, so I wanted to show you that you can open up even more data in the spiral review just by using the Manage Columns button. You can also download as needed, or you can click on any of these boxes. Let's say I want to emphasize these new skills into a new assignment. You could create an assignment from here. I'm going to show you, you can create an exam from here, but I can show you that a little bit later too when we talk about the exams training. Now, I'm going to go back. I'm going to actually just focus on proficient skills here. Okay, and I'm going to reverse the order. So I'm going to order this by the oldest date. It stands to reason that the older the skill, the higher the proficiency, that is green, silver, or gold for student screens. That should be pretty high if it's an older skill. I'm going to click on 100% just so I can show you that proficiency chart again. All of my students are proficient here. Okay, that's good news. I've got nobody down here on this end, okay, this non-proficient. So what I can do, of course, is especially if this is a building block or a fill the gaps kind of a skill, I can turn it off. What I just did was I just took away that square for my students. Okay, now I'm going to drop down to the second skill in this list. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and take a look. All of my students are doing well. I'm going to turn off this skill as well. So let me go back to spiral reviews just so I can show you. You can always turn off your skills from here as well, but I like to look at the data. So I'm going to drop down to this next skill where I have everybody proficient except Bobby. Bobby's still showing as yellow. Okay, I'm going to take away this skill for everybody, but I'm going to show you in a moment how you can use the data here to bring that skill back if you think it's necessary for individual students. So I just remove that square from everybody's screen. I'm going to drop down to the next one. This is a new skill here that's showing, look at Bobby is showing red. I'm going to take this away. I'm going to show you how you can bring that back for Bobby again. Okay, so in my spiral review right now, I've taken away 2 squares or 2 skills, obviously showing up as squares for your students that everybody's proficient in, and then 2 skills that that Bobby needs some work on. So I'm going to bring these 2 skills back for him. Right. So again, that spiral review. One thing that's good practice is to reevaluate your spiral review skills after each unit or marking period. Okay, so if they're a building block skill, you don't really need that skill. It's not on your state assessment. If it's not there, you don't need that skill. If your students are showing proficiency, it's a good time to take that skill off. Now, what about Bobby? So I want to bring back those 2 skills for Bobby. How do I do that? Well, let's jump back over to my teacher screen. I've shown you current status. That's the real-time data where your students who are active, you can click on their name and find out how they're doing, right? You can see the spiral review here. These are all of the skills so far that are showing on my screen. And then down here where it says student data, this is where I can look at even more data, and I can break it down by the class as shown here. So you can open up more data. I've already got it all turned on, but if you don't show that like errors fixed or points earned, you can see that here. You can order any of these metrics any way you want, okay? First to least, or greatest to least, least to greatest. You can do that here for student data, okay? Now, I can also go to assignments and see the completion rate for each of my students here, how they're doing. But I'm gonna go back to spiral review because I wanna show you Bobby. So here's Bobby's name. If I click on Bobby's name here, this is good data for Bobby that's showing on my screen. I can see the calendar if I want to by clicking here. I can also see some good data all time. How's he done? How many errors? How many attempts? Okay, I can hover over his circle graph just to see how many points he's accrued in each of those categories. I'm going to collapse this data. I can also see active skills here, penalties, unfixed errors. I can see the colors that he has on his screen. Okay, the different variety there of colors. I'm going to collapse that row as well. Now, going back down to these skills. Remember those 4 skills that I turned off. Now, this is just for Bobby. You can see Bobby's data here. And if you don't have all of these metrics opened up, you can certainly go to the manage columns and open up those or even more. Okay, I like to see the last 5. I like to see how many attempts. I also like to see the last correct, and of course, accuracy and color is showing here too. Okay, so there's lots of data at your fingertips that you can see. Remember those 2 skills that were really good? All the students were doing well, even Bobby. I'm going to leave those alone, but I want to bring these 2 skills back. So I want these 2 squares to show up on Bobby's screen again. What can I do to do that? Well, I go right here where it says modified spy review. Right now, Bobby is in the class spy review, shown by this little check mark and this button here. But if I click on this modified spy review, watch how that happens. Watch how that changes my screen. See these little sliders that came in? I'm going to leave these off. That's what that means. They're in the off position. But if I turn this skill on and this skill on, now I've go ahead and I've activated those 2 new skills again for Bobby. Okay. Well, they're not new, they're older skills, but now Bobby can have those and he's working on those skills. Maybe there's a couple other skills here that I want to turn off for Bobby, even though they're on for the rest of the class. So you can add skills back in if for certain students as needed just by using that modified spy review. You can also take them away. Okay, so use that modified spy review as part of a way to modify or differentiate for certain students as needed. Okay, so that's student data. One more thing I want to show you in student data, if I go back, you'll notice that there's this little spiral. That just simply means that he's in a modified spy review. If I click on Bobby's name one more time, I can go to his assignments. I really love this look at how his students have been doing on their assignments. This is good for parent-teacher conferences. It's a really nice snapshot of how students are doing. So you can see all of the different assignment names. You can put those in order. You can put in put in order by completion, order by errors fixed, or any of these other columns just to see how they've done on those. Okay, so that's student data. Last thing I want to talk about here while we're talking about tracking progress is assignments. If you go back to assignments here, if you look at all of the assignments that I have available, that means the green slider is on. Okay, so it turns white, okay, or it grays out when it's off, but that means that's available. So on a student screen, if I go back to one of my student screen, so this is one of my students, you can see that he has a couple of assignments here he's not finished with because I kept those available. You can certainly turn off assignments though if you want to, simply because when you create an assignment with new targeted skills, those new skills become part of the spy review. So you don't have to keep on any assignments if you don't want to. Okay, some teachers choose to do that. They turn off all of these assignments so students are only working in the spy review with all of their skills. And that's sometimes a good idea to do when you're doing a warm-up as well. Okay, so I wanted to talk about data first. Now let's transition into exams. So you can see here that I have created an exam. Now, Get More Math has created the corrections and follow-ups, but I want to show you first what it looks like from the student's point of view. So I'm going to jump over to a student that's in this class. They're going to click Begin Exam. So they were in the spy review, but when I open up an exam for students, they can take this exam. Now I'm going to get some of these problems right. I'll get this one right. You'll notice there's no smiley faces. There's no point systems on an exam. So this student's going to get this one wrong, but there's no feedback, right? So same thing here, get this one right. I'll get this one wrong, okay? But you'll notice there's these blue diamonds inside the squares. So let's get this last one right, okay? And I'm gonna hand it in. This is just a warning message. It's kind of like you telling them, hey, are you sure you double checked? They click yes, right? Now, you'll notice too, the beautiful thing here is that students are automatically transitioned into the spy review, so they do have something to do when they're done with the exam. Now, I'm going to go back over to my screen. If I go to the classes tab and go to the exams, this is what I see. I turned this exam on earlier. Okay, you can see this is the time frame that students have to get into and access the exam. But I'm going to click on exam 1. Now you'll notice that several of my students have already finished this exam. One student is paused. I'll show you what that student can do here in just a moment. But for the student that I just did, I did this exam. So I'm going to go to Val's name here. Okay, you'll notice that the grade is not saved yet, even though the grade was done by Get More Math. They graded it for me. Anytime you see a green check mark, there's no way to change that grade because they met Get More Math's expected answer. But if I go to the second problem, which Val missed, Now I can give partial credit if I want to. So notice the grade right now is 60%, but I could give partial credit. That would turn it to a 3.5 out of 5 and 70%. So you can do that if you want to for the ones that are marked wrong. Okay, I can click save grade and that will save it to the individual student. And that will do is that will bring me to my next student here. Okay, but you can also do a quicker version of that. Notice how I have Val's status right here is shown as graded, but I could also take these two scores right here from Ryan and Sutton, and I could click on grade turned in exams, and it's that easy. So you can grade your exams as you need to by one button, or you can go individually and just go in and change grades if needed. Maybe I want to give this person partial credit for some reason. I could do that. Click save grade though, because in order for any of the corrections and follow-ups to turn on to be activated, you have to make sure that this status says graded. Okay, now within this within this exam, you could also go ahead and look at their exam score. It's shown right here. You can download that if you want to. So there's also showing here a follow-up score. We'll get to that in a minute, but I want to show you view analysis. If I go to view analysis, now I can see the 5 skills that you saw Val take a little moment ago, and I can open up those, see the sample problem. I can see which students missed that skill. Okay. I can order any of these 2 columns here. So by points missed or by the students who missed it. Maybe I want to take these 2 skills right here. I'm going to click these check boxes. Notice how I can create an assignment. Okay. And it's going to give my students a chance to practice those. So I'm going to call this most missed on exam 1. Okay, I'm not going to assign it yet. I'm just going to save that to my filing cabinet. Okay, so that's going to show up right here. I guess I'll move that up here so you can see it a little bit better. So it's my most missed exam on exam 1. Okay, now if I go back to my classes tab and I go back to my exams, right here it says exam corrections. What does that mean? Well, as long as, one more reminder here, as long as this status says graded, any student who's graded, if you see a student that's paused, you can go into that student. Maybe they just forgot to turn it in. Okay, so maybe I want to click on turn in and I can. Okay, that'll open up the corrections for that student. It looks like though, if it's paused, it just simply means maybe they got kicked out of their browser, their Chromebook battery, shut down, whatever that is. You can certainly turn that in though for that student as needed. Okay, see where it says corrections here? I'm going to click on it. When I click on corrections, it tells you what corrections mean. For every student that got something wrong, corrections are going to be built automatically by Get More Math. They have to fix the error, and then you can determine if you want them to do some additional points on similar problems. So you can put that at 0 if you really don't want them to do that. You can put that at 1 or 2 or 3, whatever you have time for. And you can see right here, some students are going to not have any corrections, like Sutton here. He had a perfect exam. So if they have a perfect score, of course, they don't have to do any corrections, but they're only doing corrections on the problems that they missed. Now, where can your students see corrections? Okay, so again, I can see these students here. My students can see corrections right here. If I go into log in as a student, actually, I was right there. If I log in as a student, I can go right to my spiral review, right to that drop-down menu, and I can click on corrections. You'll notice that the exam corrections, the exact problems that were missed are shown here, and then they're probably going to be some other color, especially if you have had your students practicing these and you're getting your skills from the spiral review. They're going to be a different color other than white, so that's going to show up here. Okay, so that's your exam corrections. Those will be turned on, but only if, one more time, only if they're showing as graded here. Okay, now what's the other piece? The other piece is what we call follow-up. Okay, follow-up exam is just like it sounds, it's a retake. So if a student missed some questions, just the questions that they missed, similar problems are going to be generated for that student. You don't have to do any of that work. Okay, so if I click follow-up, you'll notice several of them are not generated. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my exam here. Okay, I'm going to turn this exam 1 follow-up on. So the show feature just means they're going to see it in their student menu. But if I go over here to where it says auto accept, there's a window here of time that they can access the exam. You can change that window as needed. Okay, you can't schedule it, but you can, once students are in class, you can just turn it on and say, okay, they have that much time to access that follow-up exam. Okay, so you can always change that window as needed as well. So what does that look like for the student? Okay, well, I'm going to go back over here. That follow-up has been turned on. Okay, if for some reason that follow-up is not showing for the students, they can always go back in. Let's just say I log back in as Val again. Okay, they can go to their menu, and that's where they're going to find if they're ever paused or you turn it on, but it's not accessing for them. They can go into their window and here it is. So these are those two questions that they miss. So the student can answer those right or wrong. It's still going to not give them any feedback. Okay, so I'll get these two correct. And then I want to hand it in just like they did on the original test. This is just that warning telling them, hey, did you check it? And then again, of course, right here, you can see that the student goes right directly into the spiral review. So if I go back to my screen and I go to the follow-up, now I can see the Val has turned in her follow-up. Okay, I can go and click on it. If I want to change the grades, if they were wrong, I could change them. Because their expected answer was met by Val, I'm just going to click Save Grade. Okay, and now that grade has been saved. So now if I go to follow up, you can see it's been graded. Right here, you can take a look and see maybe you want to change her overall score because we don't just provide your exam grades to your students. So you get the choice now. Do you want to just take the exam score? Do you want to factor in some of the follow-up score as part of their overall exam grade? That's why we make sure that we leave that in your hands. Okay, so that's the exams. That's the exam, which you create. The corrections are made for you as long as students are showing up as graded in the exam, and then same with follow-up. It's there for you too. So how do you create an exam? Let's talk about that next. If I click on the spiral review, I can see which skills are active, and then I can build an exam based on those skills that I have. Okay, I wouldn't build an exam unless I've allowed my students to practice and get more math and entering those answers correctly and things. So right here, I've got some proficient students marked as 0 for these newest skills. I would never give an exam if I had that low of proficiency. So maybe I'll choose a few skills, okay, from down here. Maybe these were skills from the last unit that I want to include. So those 8 skills, I'm going to check. And then I'm going to go to actions. I could deactivate those 8 skills. I could create an assignment if I want to for review, or I can click on create exam. Notice how that takes me right to the work tab. Okay, I'm going to call this exam from spiral review. Okay, notice here when you create an exam, you can either have it so that everybody gets the same problems, or you can make it so that everybody gets different problems, either one. Okay, so I'm going to make it so everybody gets the same problems here. And you can also weight these different skills. Maybe I want to weight some of them more. Maybe I don't want to include a skill for some reason. I changed my mind. I can just delete it there and click save, and that skill would be gone from that before I publish it. So if I want to publish that, I can do that. I can also, if I want to, generate a practice exam from there. So if I click publish, I can multi-class publish it. I can shuffle the problems if I want to, or publish it that way. Okay, so you can do that as you're creating those exams. Now, what does a student see? Okay, on their end, they can go into their menu. They can go to exams and follow-ups. This is the newest exam that I put in right from here. But you'll notice when I do that, they get this message. And this can be confusing for students and for teachers. So they can access it. Even though you've created it, you've published it, you get a message that appears across the top. You can either just accept individually for Val, or you can turn on the auto accept for all students if you'd like. Okay, so you can do that. What does that look like on your end? If I go back to classes and I go to exams, okay, and I go to period 3, here's that exam from the spiral review. Notice how that auto accept is turned on. You can always change that window. Okay, if needed, maybe I want to make it for a little bit later in the day. Okay, you can also print the exam as long as you made it so that all problems were the same for all the students. You can print the exact exam. You could also print a practice exam, including the answer key as well. Okay, so that's the exam from Spiral Review. All you do is go to the Spiral Review. You choose the skills that you want based on the data. You can, or again, you can order by proficiency. You can order by the date added. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at those, okay? Now, the other thing you can do is you can create an exam from the Work tab. So if I go over to the Work tab, okay, notice on my Work tab, I have that most missed from exam 1. Okay. The problem with going to the Work tab, though, a lot of teachers get frustrated because this is what happens. This is all my hard work. Let's say that I want to create an exam from Unit 3. Okay, another one here that's shown. So if I click on the plus button and I say Create Exam, okay, I'm going to call it Exam from the Work tab. Right? And so I'm just going to create an exam, but you'll notice once I clicked on create an exam, all of my hard work disappeared. Okay, so if I want that work to come back and be able to choose from unit 3 from the already skills that I've already created, I'm going to go right down here to where it says colleagues in my work. Now from here, remember, anybody who has a Get More Math account at your school is going to be showing up for your school or district. But if I click on my work, now that work that was showing here, all of my hard work folders and assignments is showing here. So I'm going to click on unit 3. This is the exam that I want to build. Now this is an individual assignment that I gave my students. These are individual skills. I could either go to those skills if I want to and add them to my exam that way. So maybe I want to do that, just to add those skills that way. Or even better, if you're happy with those lessons that you created, those assignments, you can just go and notice how when I copy it over to the left-hand side, it's just right there. So these are my skills. And maybe that's all I want to include from my most recent unit because my students haven't had enough time yet to level up these colors. But remember that most missed assignment that I created? I'm going to go ahead and include some of those skills from that assignment as well. Okay, I'm going to give everybody the same problems. Maybe I'll go ahead and increase the value of some of these, weight them a little bit more. So I've got 15 problems. I'm going to click save. Okay, now you can print the exam, okay, a practice exam at least from here. You could also publish from here, of course, and you can multi-class publish. You can shuffle it just like we did before. Okay, now the thing that you want to remember is this. You go back to classes tab. So unless you don't want all of your students to see that, you go to your exam here from your class. Okay, this is that exam that I just created. Okay, remember over here, there's an auto accept. So if I want all my students to have access right away, I just go to the auto accept. This is how much time they have to access. It is not how much time they have to finish the exam. So I can change that number if I want to, that date or that time frame. Again, this is where you can print either the exact exam if you made it so that everybody has the same problems, or you can print a practice exam from here as well. Okay, so what does that look like for my student screen? One more time, I'll log in as Val really quickly here just so you can see that. Okay, now I can go to this screen right here, go to the exams and follow-ups. I have a choice now of all of these different exams that I can go to. Okay, so that's what it looks like when your students are taking an exam. They're going to just be answering these questions. That's what it looks like when you create an exam, either from the spiral review, okay, or from the work tab, you can create an exam, right? So let's go ahead and let's wrap this up here. Let's talk a little bit about our resources that we have. Don't forget in the upper right-hand corner, you have the teacher profile icon where you can find help videos and articles and lesson plans. And then down in the bottom right-hand corner is our green chat bubble. So use that. You can also reach out, support@getmoremath.com. You can email us as well. Okay, now let's wrap this up. This is your second and third training combined. So congratulations on finishing these two up. Use that QR code if you haven't submitted your attendance yet. This training was all about tracking progress in exams. So watch your points distribution chart. You always want to strive for more green than purple. Also prune that spiral review. If there are skills that you don't need, they're not going to be on your end of year exam or they're building block skills, you can certainly deactivate those. And then create an exam, give it a shot, right? And then turn on those corrections and follow-ups so that you give your students an opportunity to improve. Thanks again for joining today, and you all take care.